Well, yesterday we heard from the EU's chief Brexit negotiator, Michel Barnier. He seemed cautiously optimistic. That's the general mood here. Later today, actually in about an hour, we're going to hear from Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker. He's going to speak to MEPs here at the European Parliament, and he's going to give his verdict. We've seen a kind of good cop, bad cop routine so far with Barnier and Donald Tusk, the European President Council, sounding optimistic, and French President Emmanuel Macron sounding less so and a little more stern. The key thing that EU leaders are not reacting well to is Theresa May's assertion that some of these options, let's say a permanent customs union or joining the EEA, that is a Norway-style relationship, would give the UK that medium-term extension that the EU had originally talked about until May 22nd. That's not so certain. A lot of people here are saying that she would still need to run European Parliament elections in the event of that medium-term extension. But right now, I think people in Brussels are happy that she's talking to the opposition because this is something that people have been wondering here for a while, why she wasn't doing it, considering that the referendum result was on such a narrow margin and she had a minority government. So cautious optimism here.
Okay, cautious optimism where you are. As you said, the EU has been talking tough with London. But if the EU grants any extension next week, I want to ask you, whatever deal Theresa May is able to hash out with Jeremy Corbyn would sort of tilt towards a softer Brexit, something that risks alienating members of her own Conservative Party. Would a deal need to be passed in the House of Commons to secure that extension?
Yes, I mean, that's really what we're hearing here. That was the original idea. The extension, the medium-term extension to May 22nd, was contingent upon May getting her withdrawal deal through really last week. And really, by the end of last week, when that didn't happen, EU leaders were saying, okay, May 22nd is off the table. Now Theresa May seems to have revived May 22nd on her own, and EU leaders are really saying not so fast. Those options, even for a soft Brexit, may still require a long-term extension, maybe a couple months, and that does mean that Theresa May has to run those European Parliament elections. The reason is, if the UK ends up still being in the EU when the new MEPs come to take their seats here at the Parliament on July 2nd, and the UK hasn't run a European Parliament election in May, it could mean that that new European Parliament is illegally constituted. And worst comes to worst, they'd have to run the whole European election over again in the whole continent. And so the EU really wants to be strict about this. And it may be that the UK ends up running an election on the 23rd of May, already knowing that it's leaving, so already knowing that these people won't actually take their seats, which would certainly be an interesting dynamic, but really a symptom of how much this has really gone down to the wire. And on the EU end, they can't take any chances with that European Parliament election.
We'll see what happens. It seems anything is possible these days. Dave, thank you very much for the update. Dave Keating reporting there from